After a day of speaking with and listening to the fundamentally decent men and women who call this nation home. I have full faith and confidence that we can do it. But we're going to have to work together. That's what I intend to promote in the weeks and days ahead. And with that, I'll take some of your questions. And let me go to Jennifer Lovin at AP. There you are. Question, thank you, Mr. President. Earlier today in Indiana you said something striking. You said that this nation could end up in a crisis, without action, that we would be unable to reverse. Can you talk about what you know or what you're hearing that would lead you to? Say that our recession might be permanent when others in our history have not. And do you think that you risk losing some credibility or even talking down the economy by using dire language like that? The latest on President Obama, the new administration and other news from Washington and around the nation. Mr. Obama, no, 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 no. I think that what I've said is what other economists have said across the political spectrum. Which is that if you delay acting on an economy of this severity, then you potentially create a negative spiral that becomes much more difficult for us to get out of. We saw this happen in Japan in the 1990s, where they did not act boldly and swiftly enough. And as a consequence they suffered what was called the lost decade. Where essentially for the entire 90s, they did not see any significant economic growth. So what I'm trying to underscore is what the people in Elkhart already understand. That this is not your ordinary, run-of-the-mill recession. We are going through the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression. We've lost now 3.6 million jobs. But what's perhaps even more disturbing is that almost half of that job loss has taken place over the last 3 months. Which means that the problems are accelerating instead of getting better. Now, what I said in Elkhart today is what I'll repeat this evening, which is I'm absolutely confident that we can solve this problem. But it's going to require us to take some significant, important steps. Step number 1, we have to pass an economic recovery and reinvestment plan. And we've made progress. There was a vote this evening that moved the process forward in the Senate. We already have a House bill that's passed. I'm hoping over the next several days that the House and the Senate can reconcile their differences and get that bill on my desk. There have been criticisms from a bunch of different directions about this bill. So let me just address a few of them. Some of the criticisms really are with the basic idea that government should intervene at all in this moment of crisis. You have some people, very sincere, who philosophically just think the government has no business interfering in the marketplace. And in fact there are several who have suggested that FDR was wrong to intervene back in the New Deal. They're fighting battles that I thought were resolved a pretty long time ago. Most economists, almost unanimously, recognize that even if philosophically you're wary of government intervening in the economy. When you have the kind of problem we have right now, what started on Wall Street goes to Main Street. Suddenly businesses can't get credit, they start paring back their investment. They start laying off workers, workers start pulling back in terms of spending. That when you have that situation, that government is an important element of introducing some additional demand into the economy. We stand to lose about $1 trillion worth of demand this year and another trillion next year. And what that means is you've got this gaping hole in the economy. That's why the figure that we initially came up with, of approximately $800 billion, was put forward. That wasn't just some random number that I plucked out of a hat. That was Republican and Democratic, conservative and liberal economists that I spoke to. Who indicated that given the magnitude of the crisis and the fact that it's happening worldwide, it's important for us to have a bill of sufficient size and scope that we can save or create 4 million jobs. That still means that you're going to have some net job loss. But at least we can start slowing the trend and moving it in the right direction. Now, the recovery and reinvestment package is not the only thing we have to do. It's one leg of the stool. We are still going to have to make sure that we are attracting private capital. Get the credit markets flowing again, because that's the lifeblood of the economy. And so tomorrow my Treasury Secretary, Tim Gaithner, will be announcing some very clear and specific plans for how we are going to start loosening up credit once again. The latest on President Obama, the new administration and other news from Washington and around the nation. And that means having some transparency and oversight in the system. It means that we correct some of the mistakes, with TARP, that were made earlier. The lack of consistency, the lack of clarity, in terms of how the program was going to move forward. It means that we condition taxpayer dollars that are being provided to the banks. On them showing some restraint when it comes to executive compensation, not using the money to charter corporate jets when they're not necessary. It means that we focus on housing and how are we going to help homeowners that are suffering foreclosure. Or homeowners who are still making their mortgage payments but are seeing their property values decline. So there's going to be a whole range of approaches that we have to take for dealing with the economy. My bottom line is to make sure that we are saving or creating 4 million jobs. We are making sure that the financial system is working again, that homeowners are getting some relief. And I'm happy to get good ideas from across the political spectrum, from Democrats and Republicans. What I won't do is return to the failed theories of the last 8 years that got us into this fix in the first place. Because those theories have been tested and they have failed. And that's part of what the election in November was all about. Okay. Karen Bohan of Reuters. Question, thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to shift gears to foreign policy. What is your strategy for engaging Iran, and when will you start to implement it? Will your timetable be affected at all by the Iranian elections? And are you getting any indications that Iran is interested in a dialogue with the United States? Mr. Obama, I said during the campaign that Iran is a country that has extraordinary people. Extraordinary history and traditions, but that its actions over many years now have been unhelpful when it comes to promoting peace and prosperity both in the region and around the world. That their attacks or their financing of terrorist organizations like Hezbollah and Hamas. The bellicose language that they've used towards Israel, their development of a nuclear weapon or their pursuit of a nuclear weapon, that all of those things create the possibility of destabilizing the region and are not only contrary to our interests, but I think are contrary to the interests of international peace. What I've also said is that we should take an approach with Iran that employs all of the resources at the United States' disposal, and that includes diplomacy. And so my national security team is currently reviewing our existing Iran policy. Looking at areas where we can have constructive dialogue, where we can directly engage with them. And my expectation is, in the coming months, we will be looking for openings that can be created where we can start sitting across the table, face to face. Of diplomatic overtures that will allow us to move our policy in a new direction. There's been a lot of mistrust built up over the years, so it's not going to happen overnight. and it's important that even as we engage in this direct diplomacy, we are very clear about certain deep concerns that we have as a country, that Iran understands, that we find the funding of terrorist organizations unacceptable, that we're clear about the fact that a nuclear Iran could set off a nuclear arms race in the region that would be profoundly destabilizing. So there are going to be a set of objectives that we have in these conversations. But I think that there's the possibility, at least, of a relationship of mutual respect and progress. The latest on President Obama, the new administration, and other news from Washington and around the nation. And I think that if you look at how we've approached the Middle East, my designation of George Mitchell as a special envoy to help deal with the Arab-Israeli situation, some of the interviews that I've given, it indicates the degree to which we want to do things differently in the region. Now it's time for Iran to send some signals that it wants to act differently as well, and recognize that even as it is has some rights as a member of the international community, with those rights come responsibilities. Okay. Mr. Obama, Chip Reed. Question, thank you, Mr. President. You have often said that bipartisanship is extraordinarily important overall and in the stimulus package. But now when we ask your advisors about the lack of bipartisanship, so far 0 votes in the House. Three in the Senate, they say, well. It's not the number of votes that matters, it's the number of jobs that will be created.